Adam, we've hit on it. The next video is not going to be, we can give up on how to walk like Ron. It's going to be how to model like Ron Carter. That's going to be a hit. Come on.
Call me, I gave you some clothes to wear.
There we go. Thanks a lot, Ron Carter. On the bass, yes, my man Ron Carter is on the bass. And check it out. Going into the 91 decade, up and until the 2000.
We are so pleased to be joined today again by the amazing Mr. Ron Carter. Mr. Carter, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's nice to be here and nice to talk to you. Both the guys on one microphone.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're talking here today. We've been emailing back and forth, and you saw one of the videos on our channels that was done by our colleague Bob DeBoo, who's a very fine bass player in his own right. And the name of the video was Walk Like Ron Carter. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of what it must be like to walk like Ron Carter, I'm just wondering for you, you're one of a handful of musicians that if you're learning the bass, at some point you have to address you, Ron Carter. And so what's it like to see now with YouTube and all of these, instructional videos? They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. You must feel flattered all day, every day.
Well, I'm pretty embarrassed. During the big pandemic, now that we're edging towards the fringes of it, I got a lot of calls from my students who were not so like there were no gigs, there were no in-person classes, and they had a lot of spare time to spend in front of their computers, necessarily so.
Yeah.
And I would get these requests that I know this record that I'm on, or that I know who was on this record that they found on YouTube, and that happened 15, 20 times during the course of a month, and I got over being embarrassed the first 10 times, saying, no, I didn't remember that. Are you sure I'm the right guy on that record? And of course, they were correct, So it led me to have to review some of my recorded history. And once I got over being embarrassed that I didn't remember each of those 2,000 and some odd recordings specifically, the ones that they picked up on were ones that were memorable because of the musical value on a larger scale than just a studio date I'm going home, So I've been embarrassed more than I'd like to say out loud, and fortunately, those student requests were due to email, not Zoom, so they couldn't see me scratching my head and say, really? Or my New York tan has turned to a nice maroon now with the blushing I've been doing with these things. So it's been a very humiliating and enlightening awareness that sometimes I can't believe I'm the guy who did those things.
So was this the first time in your career, your long and illustrious career and ongoing career, we should note, and I want to get a chance to talk about, since last we spoke, all the places you've been, in concert, in public already, again. But is this was this pandemic period sort of the first period you've had since you started to really reflect in that way and maybe see a little bit the way maybe the rest of the world, and especially other bass players and just musicians, sees Ron Carter and like how to walk like Ron Carter?
Yes, it's overwhelming. I'm blanketed with all these comments. I feel like I'm walking like this now.
Yeah.
Right.
It's quite an illuminating experience for me, and as they say in the old days, the hits just keep on coming.
Thanks a lot, Ron Carter. On the bass, yes, my man Ron Carter is on the bass. And check it out. Going into the 91 decade.
During this, I call it the 2.5-year intermission we all were forced to endure. I've put together several books for my publishing company, Retract Productions, and one of the books I use in teaching my students how to understand the how I do what I do, and I like that kind of general, non-magic terms.
Yeah.
I have a process that I have them go through, which has them to make bass lines with a certain process. I think one of my concerns, guys, is that bass players today don't have a plan. They get by on perspiration, they get by on youth, they get by on ink in terms of their reputation already, and they get by on what they think they're doing to make this reputation grow without having to study how it got there and how to make it get better, despite all the other things that they're hearing about how good they play. Having said that, I explained to my students that there's a process I call building jazz bass lines. And we go through this process until I feel that they have an understanding of how it's done. That may take anywhere from 4 to 5 lessons to fully understand what I do is based on a very simple ability to, one, just play quarter notes, two, to know where the notes are located on the bass, to understand the form of the song, and to really know the changes. If you can do those 4 things with a plan in mind, you have a good chance of not necessarily walking like me, but you'll be able to walk by yourself without the training wheels. And I have a book called Blueprint for the Working Jazz Bassist that's devoted and dedicated to guys and gals who want to play better than they do, but they don't have a plan. And they understand that they can't keep playing F7 with 4 Fs and the B flat 7 with a B flat 7, B flat F, B flat. Yeah. They understand that's no longer acceptable. The bass is being recorded a lot better than in the 40s. They've gotten better instruments. They got better strings. They have better concepts around them. And those people who are not waiting for the baby pinks to get their solo spotlight, they're starting to understand how much impact their bass lines can have on the band's success musically. One of the things that was interesting to me back in the day was that my influences were not bass players. J.J. Johnson, I was fascinated by how much he played the trombone and went by the bell twice a week. I mean, he was all here, you know. I mean, he knew the instruments, overtone series so well. It didn't matter where he was, he knew what the choices were. And that really appealed to me. Then I spent some time working with Randy Weston's quartet in the early 60s with Cecil Payne was being the baritone player. And Cecil Payne came along at the time when there were Serge Charloff in Boston. Jerry Mulligan was just getting hot again. You had Harry Carney with Duke's band. You know, we had all these wonderful baritone players that Cecil Payne, Pepper Adams, was able to sound completely different using the same instrument, baritone saxophone. And he couldn't explain to me how he did that. He just said that he's hearing something different from him. And with those two influences on the scene at my earlier days in New York, it gave me a good foothold on if I want to play this bass and get some work, what's it going to do to set me apart from the guys who are already working? And the two things that struck my mind is I have to have a certain kind of skill, not skill level, a certain kind of skill level, which allows me to play the notes that I think I hear that are pretty different than whatever everyone else is hearing, and what rhythms these notes work with. And two, can I have the sound I get on Monday the same as the sound I get on Saturday, whether they're a day apart or a year apart. The first good thing are 4 good quarter notes. Without that basic cloth, that is hard to make a design and a pattern with the basic cloth is not stable enough. And so they ask me, how do you play rhythms against that kind of cloth? You know, or what's the result? So what I'll do, I'll show you what I do. I put my metronome at quarter note is 92, and it's not too fast, you know, it's kind of thing. And I'll play with this. I'll play one chorus for just playing quarter notes. Then I'll play at the same another chorus with just a little more rhythm, but still not moving around so much. Give me 1 minute to get out of my chair and lose my physical comfort here and get the
All
basics.
right.
Please.
Okay, I'm going to play a course of just quarter notes. Blues and F. I want them to hear what the quarter note is still going on in my head. I'm still hearing this. And I make my notes, my rhythms fit inside these 4 quarter notes that I've been staying hearing since the guy gave the count off. 1, 2, 3. I'm laying right in this cut. You need 4 good quarter notes or nothing happens. Turn off my assistant.
So let me ask you about that, just to press a little further, because it's something we talk, again, we hear from so many students about. So I'm practicing all of this material, and I'm working on my sound, and then I get on the gig and it's not happening. It's not what I'm practicing. I get nervous, or I'm not playing how I play in the practice room. I'm not as present. I'm not as communicative as I'd like to be. I'm in my head. Is there anything that you can give advice for young musicians or even seasoned musicians who might be dealing with this? Because I'm pretty sure this is a universal thing, that no one's immune to big moments and being on the stage. And it's something that in my experience, everyone I've talked to at some point has had to deal with or work on their focus or concentration. Is there anything that you can give, any advice you can give to young musicians about that?
Okay, well, they have to remember when they're at home, there's no one in their way. If they can think about that at home by themselves, they're in charge of the whole program.
Mm.
And their ego accepts that. But the reality is that on the bandstand, whatever number of pieces of people are in the band, they're calling the shots.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
perfect at home.
Yeah, because it's just you.
Yeah.
There's no one playing too loud. There's no one playing sharp or flat. There's no one hitting the rhythm shot always on 2 and 4. I mean, this shuffle of rhythm. These factors are part of how you have to determine how can you work within this new confine of telling us 5 people, 4 people, whatever, the quartet, quintet, whatever they're giving you as input that they want to be responsible for. Can you make what you want to do equally important that they want to be responsible to what you're doing?
Yeah.
That means that you got to do 3 things. You have to hear what they're doing. You have to be aware of what's going on. 2, you have to hope that they're as adventuresome rhythmically as you are.
Hmm.
And 3, you have to hope that they aren't making you play a root every downbeat for the beginning of the chorus.
Yeah.
If you can get those things in place, whatever you do, it may not be great, but it'll give you confidence to try it again for the next chorus, and the next chorus, until you find out this works for this band. tell my students that the first two courses of any gig, other than my band, I'm gonna give him the band leader what he wants. A lot of roots, a lot of quarter notes. And if I play a B natural on the F chord for the downbeat, if his eyebrows go like this, I got him. The third chorus then is mine.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you can tell what bass drum is too loud, or how bright the snare drum is, or if the cymbal has a lot of ring to it, or how much the piano player is using the pedal for a metronome beat with his foot, or he's using sustain too long, or if the horn player is really sharp in pitch and he keeps holding these long notes that are almost a quarter tone sharp, and no one is afraid to tell him he's sharp. I mean, that's what you do. Part of what you do is give this guy, here's an A, man, on F chord,
Yeah.
so that everyone feels that there's something going on here other than the volume of the band, that the intonation level is kind of going sideways. You can help that by making sure your pitch is pretty good, and that things we talk about in my lessons as to what I call there's plenty of check notes available so you can check out your pitch for every note, because that's critical.
So this kind of like super advanced ear training, I guess it would be, where you can take all that in, as you say, in the first chorus, first two choruses, possibly even the first note on a gig. How do young players or any players develop this? I know, in terms of what notes to play, the chords, like this is going back to even talking about all the information and the tutorials on YouTube, how do you use the scale or whatever. But I think that you're talking about something on a much higher level of being present and being able to, hear and assimilate all this information so that you can program what you're going to play then, not based upon, I want to walk this bass line that I learned. Like how do you, and that's not even how do you walk like Ron Carter. How do you walk the first two choruses like Ron Carter so you're ready to play what everybody needs to hear?
How do you hear like Ron Carter?
If we can get that on this video, that's going to be the big secret.
So the first thing you got to do is turn to page 13 in my book.
13, okay.
Or whatever.
We're there.
The first thing you got to do is see that all those notes I'm playing in this, I have not moved at all. I'm not worried about shifting position. I'm not worried about looking fancy. I'm not worried about the TV camera catching my left hand. All I want to know is these notes I'm hearing, where the fuck are they?
Yeah.
And if I'm going to do two choruses to introduce myself to the band, I must play a good quarter note to attract their attention that I know where the beat is. I know what the form is. And I can clearly play these changes without having to join the Ringling Brothers high-rise circus to show you that I can play the bass.
Yeah.
So the line that you see on page 13 are the results of my connecting the dots.
Wow.
And that's the half position work, right? That's
that's what the big money is, man.
Amen. Yeah.
I could tell you, I've played with quite a few bass players who shall remain nameless that have used an opposite strategy to this, especially at the beginning of the tune, where it's like everything but this range and this kind of like logic and simplicity.
Yeah, they need a medic or the nurse. or a parachute to get back down from where they are, man. Yeah.
Right. And then it's like, where do you go if you start there?
Yeah, I admire that skill level because it's taken a lot of work to figure out to do that. But I think if they have a better range of the bass in mind as a full range of the bass rather than just the upper level of it, you'll find that more useless to make the upper level even sound higher if you have a good enough ground working for you.
Now, if you hear a bass player at the beginning, of a tune or something, do the opposite of this and get no high and, different rhythms and stuff, are you kind of immediately like, oh yeah, this thing could be happening? Or does it is there ever a way to, it's done, it's over?
If he does that, he doesn't really know the changes.
Yeah.
And doesn't really know the form. So he's kind of hoping that someone plays enough downbeats for him or enough melody for the second chorus to kind of save his ass, or her ass, so to speak, kind of save them not knowing how to get down from up here, because the piano player is going to stop comping every now and then. And the drummer he's just playing time with no real form necessarily in mind. The horn player is going to play what he's going to play. He may be based on fourths or alternate changes. He's going to play some notes that go over the bar line, or he may play a 3 against 4. There's no one going to be responsible for what the tune except you, young person. Your job, if you want to really start to be an integral part of the band and been able to command their attention, You got to show them what you really know to do for their sake.
Mm.
It
And
seems
if you
too
get to the
that
third course and you're still hired, then you got them. Okay, you're on the right track.
well, it seems too that with this half position, you have the F blues in the half position, and it's sort of what you're saying is it goes hand in hand with those first two choruses of listening, and again pressure testing. What is going on here? Who's doing what? Where am I fitting into this?
Yeah.
You can't do that if you're doing acrobatics, right out of the gate.
It's a little complicated, but again, the point is what that leads to, Peter, is that the band leaders, they start thinking, whose band is this? And that can't be productive for the rest of the night. I hear band leaders say to me, "Hey, maestro, I did this gig with this young man, and he stayed above G for the first 8, 9 courses of every tune. Well, he wants the audience to be seeing him and hearing him. He's not concerned with his job, which is to make you sound good.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, his job is to see who can get the most attention fastest, and he's playing all the notes, and he's got maybe the loudest sound in the band with the amp and stuff. He or she, they want their share of attention before they've earned it."
Yeah. Okay, I want to, if it's okay, just jump to a little bit off subject of bass lines, but it's something I've always
Okay.
wanted to ask you. And so I feel like, I don't know, this will either be a really interesting place or it'll be like,
now's your chance.
whoops, Zoom is done. Where did Mr. Carter go? But since you were mentioning about, having this opportunity during the pandemic period to be able to kind of dive in and see a side that oddly enough, all of us have been seeing and talking about, and especially bass players, but really all musicians for years. There's two other areas that I always thought were interesting for you besides obviously bass lines. One is you are one of the most photographed jazz musicians of all time. And by that, I mean one of the most really well photographed and photogenic musicians of all time. I mean, I remember the first
some examples going right up.
Oh yeah, we have a few
Yeah,
examples
yeah.
going back here that we just do together. But I mean, did you realize that, or is that kind of like this? Everyone's talking about Ron Carter's bass lines, and you didn't know that was happening.
One of the things, as I have asked occasionally, when I got the nerve to ask a guy, "Why are you doing that?" He said, "You make it look so effortless." I never see you. It appears to me exerting yourself past the point of almost of sheer exhaustion, and it's just the first couple of choruses,
Right.
And I think that how do you do that look that they think is okay to film, to photograph, is one of the reasons why I remember some of those iconic pictures of a bass player. One of the things that attracts people to me is the sound that they heard on records.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been able to, despite everything else, and by that I mean, just check this out. If I play a note in March in the studio, it gets to your house maybe a year later, okay? But in this process, there are 5 people who think they know what the bass sounds like.
Yeah, that's true.
The engineer, the producer, the band leader, the mixer, and the guy who makes the master. They all have these little dials in front of them about the bass presence.
Mm.
And in the old days, when you had LPs, you could see the widest bands on a record were where the bass was the loudest. It took up the most space, So I think now when they come to where I'm working, they're used to hearing that sound live that they heard on the radio or on their neighbor's record or in their car. And I think it's that which enhances what draws them to gigs I play, because I want to see this guy. Is he really doing that, what I heard on the radio?
Mm-hmm.
Is he really playing like that live? And it's already the second set.
Right.
And I think it's those kind of things that draws them to me
Yeah.
and my visual image,
But as you'll see from some of these, like, okay, like that one right there, you're not even holding the bass and you're looking good. You're looking like a model. So there's that. There is another thing. Like it definitely, I believe it comes you have a natural talent and ability in modeling, maybe ahead of your time even.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. You know, it's not just the bass line.
I didn't know you were a talent scout, Peter.
No, but it's true. I mean, the ones with the bass, of course, are because I think that, you know, with all great jazz photography, and I'm super interested in jazz photography, but it like, I mean, like you see this, Wayne Shorter, Miles Davis, Ron Carter, like the sound floods into our brains as we're looking at. There's that. But then when it's just you holding it, it's like, yeah, just your notes floods in. But when you have the bass down, it's like, wow, that's just a cool guy there hanging out by bass. I wonder if he plays it or not. I don't know. He's looking good there anyway.
I'll give you 2 points on looks.
Yeah, exactly. Because I remember the very first time I went to Japan in 1994, I was with Roy Hargrove, and I'm like, you know, and you probably remember the first time we went to Japan. It's like, I mean, it's beyond, I'm in a foreign land. I'm like, I'm on Mars or something. But I remember walking and there was a billboard of you for an advertisement. And I had to do a double take. I'm like, that's Ron Carter. And, and you did have a bass, but it was really, I mean, it wasn't just about like the bass. It was like a beautiful black and white. Was it a alcohol or cigar? I know it was something adult.
Yeah, Suntory.
Suntory, right. Yeah, you were like ahead of Bill Murray. You were like Suntory times before Bill Murray was, you know.
Yes, I'm not sure he recognizes that, but it was.
For relaxing times, make it Suntory time.
あったかいホワイトサントリーホワイト
I mean, it was like just striking for photography and like set in Japan. It was night and I was like jet lagged, but I felt like I'd gone to like Mars, but heaven also. I was like, what? In heaven, Ron Carter is on every corner. It's not just on my albums. He's everywhere.
I think it should be noted too that when you asked him how he photographed so well, he brought it back to the practice room.
I know, that's good. That's true. That's true.
You know, Japan was one of the few countries that sees jazz musicians as viable models for a product.
Yeah.
In the States, they find an actor who looks great, but he holds the bass or the saxophone upside down or backwards. And
right.
For them, it's not so critical as it is the product he or she is pushing.
Yeah.
In Japan, they wanted people to see not only is this product okay, but the guy looking who's holding the coffee cup. I did a Tully's, which is like the Japanese version of Starbucks, you know.
Yep. Yeah.
In a coffee shop, you know, and I'm playing in the background in a small coffee shop, I think. And for them, that I'm playing at this coffee shop,
Yeah.
playing a real bass with some real serious intent.
Yeah.
The coffee must be as good as I am.
Yeah.
It may not look as good as I do right then, but it must be okay.
One,
Barista Special debut.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, they care about the quality. I think even though they know a lot of the people don't know exactly that you're holding the bass exactly correctly in your hand position, but they care about quality so much. They're like, it doesn't matter because someone is going to know and it's going to resonate with them.
And they're right, because that's what's happened. A lot
Yeah.
of people who do know responded to that, you know.
Yeah.
I did a vitamin ad, you know, I did a life insurance ad, you know, because that look that I bring to the product gives that product a little more panache, a little more legitimacy.
slow.
I'll see you guys at 6, man.
Play slow. All right.
Yeah, I'll take it
All right
easy.
now.
All right.
Slow.
ベースを抱きしめるように彼は自分の家族や人生を抱きしめながら生きているんだと思う。みんな同じだよね。私には抱きしめるものがある。第一生命。
I'm telling you, I think we've hit on it. The next video is not going to be, we can give up on how to walk like Ron. It's going to be how to model like Ron Carter. That's going to be a hit. Come on.
Call me, I gave you some clothes to wear.
There we go.
That's just how like high-end models do. They try to be like, oh, it's the clothes. Like they're real stuff. No, it's not me, it's the clothes.
Well, one more question I had for you, and I'm sure you get asked this all the time. When someone asks you for an album recommendation or musicians that you come back to again and again, who are you still listening to? Who are your influences even to this day? What are some albums that you would recommend to students or potential students?
Listen to some Oscar Pettiford. He was one of the few guys who really wrote perfectly for the instrument. All his melodies, man, "Swinging Till the Girls Come Home," "Blues in the Closet."
Yeah,
all those songs are the tricketism. And of all courses, of all things, D flat, for crying out loud. Come on, Oscar. But they were perfect. They were perfectly for the bass. You needn't transpose them to C to make it easier. When you did that, it became more difficult. He understood where to find the notes without jumping around as best he could, given the 40s and 50s. You know? I recommend that they listen to Ahmad Jamal's "But Not For Me" with Israel Crosby.
Oh yeah.
His bass line and the melodies that Ahmed left space for him to play. It proceeded to Gary Peacock and the Scott LaFaro lack of time, necessarily a 4/4 kind of beat.
Mm-hmm.
He played in tune. He played maybe only 3 harmonic G's for a whole record up top there because he closed the notes.
Yeah.
You know, he was like 5'5", 5'6", a short guy playing an American standard. You know, he brought the bass to be forefront in the trio where he was not the forefront. He had a wonderful sound, had great pitch, and when you heard that record, you know, oh, that's the same guy from Ahmad Jamal's record. And I think the last record I would recommend to a beginning bass player would be my record, Brandenburg Number 3, where I do the Brandenburg third, but I've rewritten, I have written a bass part to accompany box number 3. And I've written some changes. I've added some bars for some solos, but I'm still come back in the solo. I come back to the part that all the bass players and cellos and the orchestra are playing. I'm doubling their line on the way down, so I'm not just skating on top and stopping. I feel like I got a plan. There's that word again.
Comes back.
Yeah.
My plan must stop here so I can play the last 4 bars that the bass players are playing, that the cellos and the bass players are playing in this part of this piece. I would like to hear that so they understand how much control I'm exerting in adding this solo on top of the famous piece that always ends correctly. And it had a great sound. The bass was playing by itself, you know. You know those days, man. The bass just kind of takes over. Well, I say, well, here it is, guys. Bam, take that, you know. And there's a great feeling to know that they captured that day.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr.
Nice
Carter.
to see you guys again. You know, next time we do this, what we can do is I can give you, or you can give me some bass lines in half position, and I'll play them for you. I will show you how to take those same bass lines, add rhythm to those same notes so they feel completely different when I've added the rhythm to them.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Awesome.
You got some homework. Yeah, come on.
Okay.
We got some homework, and folks will have something to look forward to also, and to
It's
practice.
going to be fun to see how I treat the bass lines that you guys conceive as being great quarter notes, and what would I do with them if I played those order of notes. Only in half position, though.
Only half position. Good.
Yeah.
Well, we're piano players. That's all we do.
None of half line stuff. When you're doing this, you're presenting me with a nice format with guys who know about music and know about bass and have me in the background. I love that stuff. Anytime.
Good stuff.
Fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you, my friends.
Take care.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Share the voice of the posse.
Wow. New shoe by Adidas and Bookworks. I just found the script, man. The same line. But before we do that, how close shall I hold this to my face? Something like this, some kind like this?
Je me dois d'être courtois, tu te demandes pourquoi, parce que la cause est noble. Voilà, c'est grâce à l'héritage jazz que l'homme singe devient l'homme sage. J'ai l'âge de 10 ans quand je demande à ma maman pourquoi tant de mal dans le monde des grands. C'était cool à l'époque avec mon short et mes potes. Désormais quand je suis comme je pense au spot sur les capotes.